Okay,
Kick us off.
kick us off. Okay, it's Deborah Criddle, my guy Mark Jones.
What up?
We're super excited because once again we have opinions. Shocking.
Shocking. Yes.
But first of all, I just like to focus on this.
That's
It's
beautiful. I
it's
wonder if I
Jason
can just
Mann,
put you up
Jason
on the
Mann,
screen.
the head guy of Man Mortgage on a camel. And I know when he hears this, sees this, knows that it's produced, he's just gonna be so proud. Like this is a proud moment for him. I just want
As it
everybody to
should be. That's right.
I want everybody to think, what is on her shirt? It's Jason Mann on a camel. It's exactly what you think it is. I just think it's appropriate for this. For no purpose.
Nice humps, Camel. Nice humps.
Yes. Okay, what are we talking about, my guy? What are we talking about
Today we're
today?
talking about something that has been spewed all over the media, all over social media, and is being talked about in the public without definitive answers or correct responses by many agents, many brokers, and many media outlets, in my opinion. And that topic is the NAR settlement that recently took place regarding buyer representation. There was a big lawsuit, and it was a class action lawsuit that pretty much found that buyers and sellers did not agree to paying commissions, but moving forward, there's going to be some changes. So we're going to talk about those changes and how they possibly affect you as a buyer, you as a realtor, if you're listening in, and maybe some of the brokers that are not aware of what's going on. Shame on you if you don't, but it's definitely something that we should talk about as mortgage lenders because we're being asked the questions.
Yeah, we definitely are. I think the one thing that I just point out as you're going to pull up an article, we're going to talk about a couple of them, is there's this great assumption in our area. So you definitely chime in on your side is, and I guess I would say that I'm guilty with this, is it was hey, buyers, you're not paying the real estate commissions, the seller is. And that was true. Like the seller
Right.
is technically coming out of his purchase price to pay for it. But that's where it stopped. It
Yeah.
it was never like, okay, well, wait a minute. If I don't want to spend $250,000 on this house, I only want to spend 245. Realtors, each of you take $2,500 off your commissions because me as a buyer only want to spend 245. You as a seller need to net what you want. So those conversations didn't get had.
Right.
And so I can see the reason why consumers felt like they didn't have the choice. Even though it's always been negotiable,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it was never talked about. It was just
And
the understood.
we have to put ourselves in the minds of or the position of a buyer. Let's call it a first-time home buyer that this isn't what they do for a living. They're trusting
No.
in the individual to that's representing them to explain things, to be transparent with them and let them understand how this works. Now, the lawsuit in itself came from the listing side of things because they were unaware that they had to pay the buyer side commission. I mean, I'm torn on that concept because they do send a listing agreement and sign that listing agreement stating that they're paying out commissions, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason for that is so that they can actually have a valid buyer pool to choose from when their house goes live, you know?
So in your Texas contracts, because this is what I ran into when this very, very, very first started coming out, the realtors in my area that I reached out to, they're just like, it doesn't affect us. Idaho's contract has got us protected.
Same here.
They've changed their attitudes a little bit because there is going to be a shift in what they've got to do. But it was worded right in there, seller, you are paying, and this isn't every case, but this is just the general version, is seller, you are paying 6% of the commissions. Me as a seller's representation, I'm going to go ahead and share 3 of that with the buyer side. So our contracts made it very clear. Now, what we know from our experience, people don't read things. They just
That's
sign their
exactly
name.
right.
They just sign their name. And I'm sure that's what happened. And maybe some of these other states didn't have these contracts that were as clearly stated. Like Idaho is very clear.
Right.
Seller knew they were paying 6%. if the seller chose to not pay attention that they were doing that, okay, fine. Seller's agent is sharing it to the buyer's side. And
I wonder what the rule or law is of signing something. I think it is, as long as you sign and you are coherent and sound of mind, that's an agreement.
it
So
is,
the whole ignorance claim is kind of silly because you signed.
yeah,
And
we didn't know.
not
Well, you
only did you
signed it.
sign, but we sold the house, you got your money. What now? Uh,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
look at this article here and shed some light or opinions on the subject itself. So we've got the future of real estate commissions post real estate settlement to talk about. And then we've also got another one that says the truth about the NAR settlement agreement. And I have these both up because they are two different outlets. One is going to be from Bankrate and the other is directly from the Realtor Association. So in this article, it flat out says misinformation has been pervasive in the media over real estate commissions. And here are the facts you should know. Uh,
Interesting how the word misinformation and media are in the same sentence.
the
Shocking.
odd, surprising
Interesting.
there. Yeah. So facts first, it says that there's much media has gotten wrong about NAR settlement, which would require association to pay $418 million over 4 years. Some outlets have suggested that the NAR previously set or guided commissions to a standard of 6%. Even Joe Biden, in a recent comment, misspoke in the suggestion that the settlement makes commissions negotiable for the first time. And we know that that was false. Why? Because commissions have been negotiable for a long time now. Let's see here. Now, there was a piece in here that I wanted to talk about.
I do think while you're looking for that
Yeah, sure.
is they've always been negotiable, but unless the consumer, both seller buyer side, unless the consumer was educated, the realtors chose to not give them that piece of information. Like they chose for it to just be like, pass over this and we're just going to get our 6% concessions or commissions.
You mean kind of like a they uh, I don't know, hid the truth or tried to pass it over?
Maybe. I mean, and that sounds pretty attacking to a realtor because that's not necessarily what I'm meaning by that. But if a consumer didn't know that, the market says it's a 6% sales commission. That's it. That's just what the market says.
Right.
And I, as a consumer, even in this right now, and 28 years in the mortgage industry, I was like, yeah, I knew it was negotiable, but what if you try to negotiate it? Does your
Right.
agent just say, "Well, I'm not going to represent you because I'm worth 3%, and if you don't give me 3%, I'm not going to help you buy a house." Seller, same thing. You have a hard house to sell. If you don't pay me 3%, find a different realtor.
And I have seen many of realtors, brokers preach that for many years simply because it is their value that they are essentially selling in that transaction.
Yeah.
Um, and the comparison was, do you go to somebody else's job and ask them to lower their commission, to lower their price because you want to negotiate for it? I mean, you can always try, but if you
Yeah.
go to Walmart or anywhere else and get to the counter and basically try and negotiate without proof, you're not going to get very far. Now, mind
Yeah.
you, you can go to a Walmart or any place like that and allow them to do a price match if you can find it somewhere else cheaper. That is totally fair. Now, it doesn't compare to a service type industry as opposed to a product in the sense that the standard could be here and that realtor for the same 3% is going to give you service that is here. You'll
Yeah.
find agents that will give you lower service, and it should be at the seller's discretion to be able to say, hey, you're not meeting our level of a service that we agreed upon up front. That's it. Termination, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just
All
don't
right,
know if
pop your
that's
article back up.
here
I
it is.
went off on my tangent.
I like tangents. Okay, so changing business practices. The settlement agreement also mandates two key changes to the way that members of MLS participants do business. And I think this is the most important piece because these are the changes that have been brought from the lawsuit. Everything else you're hearing in the media is just noise, misinformation, and
Assumptions.
there you go.
Assumptions. Yeah.
So number one, NAR agreed to create new MLS rule prohibiting offering of commissions on the MLS. This would mean that the offers of commissions or compensations could not be communicated via MLS, but they could continue to be an option consumers could pursue off MLS through negotiations and consulting with real estate professionals. So let's talk about that first one real quick. What do you think that means interpretation wise?
Okay, so right now, just for those that may or may not know, because I don't have that access to the MLS, but right now, basically, if I've got a real estate agent that's representing me to go buy a house, I say, hey, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this school district in this area with this whatever. They're gonna pull up the listings, and there's a little place in there that says seller willing or commission 3%. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it basically says paying 2%, paying 1%, paying 3%. That's going to be eliminated. It's going to go. But what is so funny is all it does is you can't go to the MLS and see it.
Right.
But you can shoot a text message to the listing agent and say, hey, how much are you paying on this house? Like, it just added a step.
You raised another good point. I mean, that in itself does not breed more predatory type practices in doing that because it's not out there in the open. I mean, I know that on the commercial real estate side of things, I had a recent discussion with some commercial brokers. None of their commissions are on the MLS system, haven't been for quite some time because there are different types of ways to negotiate a commercial property, leasing, purchasing, by square footage, by if they are adding your TI money to it, things of that nature. And this, in my opinion, with there being so many realtors out there, it could cause a little bit of, I don't know, predatory practices.
Yeah.
That, okay, somebody calls, they're your buddy, we're going to do 4% as opposed to somebody else. They're new to the business. We're going to try only giving them 2%.
Yeah. Yeah. Do the seller's agent be like, hey, John Doe called, I promised him 2%. Oh, my buddy Bob called, I'm going to give him 3. Like, how does he, they're going to have to keep track of this? Yeah. And oh man, can you, as you go down the predatory side, how many, not hidden conversations, I don't know, but it's just like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this and we're going to kick back and we're going to do all this stuff. And I'm thinking, man, the CFPB's got to get in hold of this. Like they've got to, because we're talking consumers. We're not talking sellers and buyers. We are talking consumers that are not educated and consumers ultimately going to be affected by these secret conversations. In the lending world, everything we do has to be disclosed.
That's right.
This is backwards.
We're regressing.
Disclose it.
Exactly right. And another topic of discussion on this is if the sellers are unwilling to pay the portion to the buyer's agent for representation, now you've got buyers going directly to the list agent, which then creates a dual agency situation that they were supposed to try and eliminate because there was collusion and things of that nature. So it's like we're regressing backwards.
Yeah.
Unless they're truly trying to halt or slow down the access to a realtor for a buyer, which then leads to more corporations purchasing single family residence.
Yeah. 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 It feels definitely backwards, and the media is going to spin it how it needs to so it looks good, but it's definitely seems a little bit off. I had lunch with a realtor this last week, and he's a really top end realtor in our area that's very in the know of what's going on and very boots in the ground with his clients. Like he knows everything about their loan terms, where they work, all this stuff, because that is what's important to him, to make sure he keeps track of everything, which is awesome to have a realtor that cares that much.
I agree.
Anyways, he said, I bet the MLS goes. Because why do we need it?
I
Like, they're paying into
disagree
it
with
via
that.
the MLS, and you've got Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and some of these other things that are going on that why do they need the MLS?
Good point.
So
Uh,
they
and
just
another comparison to the commercial side, they don't have an MLS.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that, that's gonna be an interesting thing that if all you're doing on the MLS is just listing, there's the
I
big boy
agree,
Zillow, there's the big boy realtor.com,
right?
this new one that's just come out, homes.com or
Mhm.
something, and
They're actually they've been around for a little while, but just recently made a push and a huge marketing effort. I think they spent
oh, yeah.
tons of money to kinda kickstart their campaign back into the eyes of home buyers, potential home buyers.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
just it'll be that one's gonna be interesting to see when he said that, I just thought, "Oh,
yeah.
I hadn't thought about it." And
Mhm.
and at the point that, I don't know enough about the NAR, but it just makes me wonder if some of these what's the purpose of the NAR? Are they
Agreed.
gonna be required? And if you've got realtors feeding into the NAR and maybe the NAR isn't advocating for the realtors correctly,
Right.
are we gonna have these more local realtor
Yeah,
entities
platforms,
forming,
that's exactly right.
and doing more of a co-op type thing that way instead of a national? Because the national clearly isn't doing much
It's
to
not
help them.
working, yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
Anyways, yeah,
back
go
to
back to
this,
that.
we've got, number 1, and I think both of you and I both agree, there's not much of a change here other than you cannot market it on the actual MLS system. That in itself, going from marketing on the MLS to doing it on phone calls and emails after the fact, not a big change in my opinion. So number 2, let's see here. Number 2, NAR also agreed to create a new rule requiring MLS participants working with buyers to enter into a written agreement with their buyers before the buyers tour homes. NAR has long encouraged its members to use the written agreement to help consumers understand exactly what services, values they are provided, and for how much. This, in my opinion, is not a big change at all for Texas because we always have used the buyer representation agreement. And in that buyer's representation agreement, they are signing with the understanding that the realtor is providing a service. If the listing agent it does not pay the commission, then they are responsible for it.
I think relax here on that because of the conversations that I have periodically with clients is like I'll get a referral from a realtor for this borrower, get them all pre-qualified, and 2 or 3 days goes by, and then the borrower's like, "Oh, I'm not using them anymore. I'm gonna go over here." Like, "Did you by chance sign anything? Because I do
Right.
know that is a legal binding thing." "No, I haven't signed anything." So the realtor who gave me the referral, I'm trying to save that relationship
Sure.
because I don't wanna lose that referral partner, but I think in our world where it's gonna be required, I think some of these agents that have been a little bit more lax not necessarily on purpose, but now they kinda get to hide behind the law.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, I would love to take you to buy this house, but you have to sign this form saying I'm gonna represent you." And
Right.
I think it'll actually help us kinda kickstart that requirement just a little bit because we are very I mean, we're getting out of this, but we're very handshake over the fence kinda people still
Sure.
in
And,
this area,
and
and
let's face it, buyers can leave a loan officer at any point in time. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's up to the consumer, but yet if a realtor has a buyer's rep agreement signed, they could be the worst realtor ever for that time period. They're representing them, and if the buyer decides to go off and contract on a house without them, they're still getting paid.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing about do these realtors now sign one that lasts a day?
Mhm.
A list of these homes or uh, I think the good realtors are gonna say, "Hey, you're gonna sign this rep with me, but if you don't like me or we don't mesh, because personalities still have to get along. You're going in and out of these homes with these people, and you're spending quite a bit of time with each other. If you
Mhm.
don't like each other, tear it up and be done with it."
I
So there's
agree.
always gonna be an out, but I really I'm I can't really say that I'm like super excited about it. I just
Right.
think it's going to help our agents on our side to just they have to. They
Right.
have to sign this form, and so it protects it, and it's gonna help those consumers right from the get-go learn just a little bit more about the process
I agree.
instead of just winging it.
And that being the case, comparing what we just went over, which was the facts essentially, to what we're seeing in the media. Media is saying 6% is going away, realtor commissions are going to change, all of this stuff that they're presenting. I'm not seeing that being a overwhelming change. It is a change in the practice of how they go about it, but not in this standard of 6%. More so, it wasn't a standard. It's just what kind of it is.
Yeah.
So I've got this other one that we want to just briefly look over right here, how real estate commissions could change. And I like that they say could change because it's not a definitive.
It's open-ended.
Very open, yes. So starting in July 2024, pending federal court approval, home sellers no longer will be responsible for paying both their own agent and the buyer's agent. Instead, home buyers who want representation will have to pay their own agent separately. And then it says next up, perhaps full throttle price competition among buyer agents. You're going to see buy side price wars by next year. And this was said by, I don't even know how to say that. Some
Visual Garg.
Visual Garg, CEO of mortgage company Better. So I think it's like better.com. Under the new system that NAR agreed to the settlement, the suit, or to settling the suit, when a home buyer hits the market, or when a home hits the market, listing agents no longer will specifically specify how much their buyer's agent will be paid. Instead, the fee will be negotiated separately between the buyer and the buyer's agent. And then it goes on to say, technically, real estate commissions always have been negotiable. Practically through the agents are more skilled at negotiating than the clients, and the commissions have clustered in the range of 5%. The settlement sets the stage for the buyer's agents to aggressively market their fees. Stephen Borbrick, senior fellow of the Consumer Federation of America, expects commissions will ultimately fall below 4%, maybe even 3%. Over time, more agents will feel free to offer different types of compensation, and more consumers will comparison shop and negotiate commissions in more transparent market, he said.
That's right there. That's how the CFPB is going to be happy.
Yeah.
It just gave the control to the consumer. The problem is us as lenders, we are going to have to be like so vigilant with our clients.
Absolutely.
Because when we're talking years, we've never had to care about real estate commissions. Never.
Right.
Like that's their deal. It's on the sheet. It takes care of it. It's on the seller side, not my problem.
Right.
Now it's going to be, okay, what have you negotiated with your buyer's agent? Okay, I got to pay him 1.5%. Okay, your down payment requirement is 3%. All right, my down payment assistance program only covers this. You guys are going to have to pony up $2,500.
Right.
It is going to have to be that we get very, very tied together with our real estate agents that we work with, and these buyers and our agents. We're going to have to just join forces, because it could be really ugly for the consumer. It really could. Because you've got, like, right now we're in the first time home buyer, or not first time home buyer, but everybody is pinching pennies. Nobody has extra money. They want to buy homes. Rates are high. Prices are high. Buying freaking eggs is high. It's ridiculous. Everywhere you go, everything's high. And now, instead of it technically kind of being financed in a roundabout way, we're all right, buyer. Now you can barely come together with 1%. You've negotiated 3% with your seller or your realtor. You got to find 4%.
Yeah.
It changes the whole down payment requirement.
And what I'm seeing, or what I've been hearing, is them looking to the financing side to see how we can start rolling in these commissions into the financing. I don't know how I feel about that, because we've already got a very tight market from an aspect of higher interest rates. Very few buyers have funds. Is it going to be ethical for us to roll in commissions? But at the same time, is that not what we're technically already doing at the
Yeah.
sale price?
Yeah.
So
Well, there's two things. One of those is it's not we don't have power. We got
correct.
to wait for the GSEs to come out. Fannie and Freddie on the conventional side, they're the ones that are going to cause us the most havoc because
Mhm.
they are already so restricted, which is fine. VA and FHA are already at a 6% concession. So technically we can kick that in. The seller's going to cover more concessions that way. But man, on the conventional side, 3% is max if you're at maximum financing.
That's right.
And so our hands are going to be tied. It really is until Fannie and Freddie come out and give us some sort of guidance. Those real estate concessions cannot be put into our transaction if you're at maximum financing. They just
Right.
can't. There's not room for it.
Well, I mean,
And
you raised another good point that I'll kind of, I guess, sum it up. Um, the idea that sellers are out there potentially in the future going to say, I don't want to pay any realtor commissions on the buyer side. But then what you'll end up seeing is them contributing to the buyer's closing cost or what have you. So it's like, guys, what are we really doing here in this
what yeah, no
whole?
gain.
And there's zero gain. You're like trying to chase your tail, and it's all being created for this media scare tactic to get buyers to stop having representation or to put fear into the actual real estate market completely. For some hidden agenda, in my opinion. I just don't.
Oh, there's something there. Yeah, there's something there, and it's gonna come. I chatted with one of our real estate agents that's, I can't say he's a conspiracy theorist because he's got a light lots of, scripture references and
Okay, okay.
God-fearing things that he pulls into it that makes you just wanna go, "Yeah, let's not chat anymore. I'm gonna go build my bunker in the desert." But, um I think that it could have been solved by a mandatory disclosure of real estate concessions or real
Mhm.
estate commissions are negotiable. This is what the buyer can plan on paying. This is what the seller can plan on paying. And this is how we can have it all come together. Fine,
Right.
pull it off the MLS. But pulling it off the MLS didn't solve the problem. They
No.
still allow conversations behind the scenes. And I want to compare this to our appraisal laws that have come out years ago, when the rule changed from us being able to hire our own appraisers.
Right.
It is against the law for us to talk to an appraiser. Now, could they call us and say, "Hey, can you give me the title commitment?" Sure. I mean, that has nothing to do with value. That's
Of
a
course.
clerical thing. Fine, whatever. But for the communication of the appraiser and the loan officer, it's like shut off.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, how come that wasn't the case with this? If we are so protective of the buyers and we want to negotiate this, then why wasn't it that everything's in writing?
Mm.
Everything is documented. Everything is on the uppity up. But now we're having all these secret conversations and backwards. I mean, we're back to the same thing we started talking about. It's just something could have been solved by a disclosure because we have like what 47 disclosures our clients have to
At
sign.
least, yes.
And then some idiot's going to sue some other idiot. And then we're going to get a 48th disclosure is what's going to happen.
That's
So
exactly correct.
yeah, just give us one more form to sign and they can't, the contract's not valid until negotiations of those commissions are 100% spot
Agreed
on.
upon.
And
Yep.
but our lending, our Fannie Freddie people, they've got to step up. They've got to get us some information. The hard thing about it is I just wonder if they're going to wait till the last minute because in that one article it says, and we do know this, it's pending July 1st type thing, but we still have some courts involved. That is it going to get postponed? Is it going to get changed? Is
Could
something
be.
going to
Yeah.
happen? We don't
We
know.
don't know. That's
So on
exactly right.
June 30th, Fannie and Freddie are going to come out and tell us what we're going to do. And we're going to be scrambling because they're going to put it in place July 1st. That's just the nature of our lives. So
Absolutely. Well, folks, if you are concerned as a buyer in regards to how you should interpret what we're discussing here, maybe you're going through the process of purchasing a home and looking for finance options, Deborah Criddle and myself are available and licensed in multiple states. If we're not licensed there, we definitely have somebody within the company of Man Mortgage that can help you out. But I
don't Google it.
yeah, don't Google it. Don't Google it because if you you can find the right answer and the wrong answer portrayed in the way that feeds your appetite and satisfies that curiosity that you're looking for, right or
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Just just get educated with people who know what's going on and don't be
Agree.
scared. This is it just really comes down to things have changed, but things haven't changed.
That's
Like
right.
it's just
Permission
not
to
something to be
ask
stressed about.
questions. Ask questions. Continue to ask questions to find the answers that you're seeking from an expert. I think that is the most important thing, is make sure that you are dealing with an expert that is explaining these things to you and how they could affect you given your situation and your transaction.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
There we go.
Wonderful.
All
Okay.
right. You guys have a great week.
Okay, bye.